Perfect. John, the floor is yours. You may begin your session, and all the best. Cheers.
Thank you. So can you confirm for me whether you are seeing my screen share currently?
Yes, we can see it, yes.
Okay. So on today's session, we are covering the topic Introduction to Kali Linux. And that is the date and time. Sure. So to the next slide, I'm John Kiguru, Joan, a student in Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I'm an active CTF player, and I use the alias Trustirity. Yeah. So on this slide, we have a picture, and if anyone would be kind enough to identify the picture, the bird in the picture, that would be really nice. Anyone? Okay.
It's a penguin.
So exactly, this is a penguin. So this is the master class of Linux. That basically means the logo of Linux. It's a penguin, which is always in blue. On the background of Kali Linux, so I read a bit of history about Kali Linux, and it came about that 2013 era, I guess. Yeah, so they first made Wapix, I guess, and then into Backtrack. And then from there, now Offensive Security took, renewed the Backtrack. Specifically, they designed that distribution to be a penetration testing one and specialized for cybersecurity guys. At around 2015, they released the Roaring distribution. So what that means is that you basically don't have to install a new Kali image to be able to incorporate new updates and changes. Yeah, so you can like basically upgrade or update via the terminal using a few commands. Kali Linux, basically it's mostly preferred by cybersecurity enthusiasts and also for professionals. And this is because it brings around various tools together. When I talk of various tools, I mean like various tools used in pen testing. So from the picture here, we can identify two terminals are open, and then on this part, I can identify some Windows log, and I think this is a VirtualBox, yeah, with Kali Linux, not sure, but this looks like CMD. But anyway, so in the first terminal, we can see that it's a PowerShell being launched. And then in the second, we can see the user is root. And so the reason I'm identifying that is we can come here and say bash. So you can see trusty, trusty. So this means I'm just user trusty. Let's see. Yeah, now that is better. So yeah, now that's better. So from here we can see the reddish. So if I basically do something like sudo takai, this will change my current user to root, and then give in my password, then do bash. You can see now the reddish, that is root at trusty. So trusty is the host name of this machine. Yeah. So from there we can see the apt. So basically that is the package manager. And then in this first screen, we can see we are launching PowerShell. So I'll do that in a bit. Okay. So I'll do that in a bit. Okay, actually you can do it right now. So he's launching PowerShell like that. And one thing with PowerShell you can do like GCI, that is get content, get child item. Anyway, this is out of scope. So let's go ahead and let's learn about the Kali Linux structure. So these are the items I was able to identify when I was making this slide, but of course there are more to this. Yeah, there is more to the Kali Linux structure than this. So for the file system, we always start with, I think they call it the tree structure. So if you do something like tree, it will like list all these files. So that is misbehaving because I have a lot of files. So on the top domain of that tree, or on the branch top, we have these files. These are the, what do we call them? The default files. For example, the symbolic link to user bin. So this directory, or basically I can say a symbolic link, points to user bin. You can see a file like mount. So this mount file or directory always appears when you boot up a file system, when you boot up your machine, that is. Yeah. So we have a default one like home, root, then the run. So this will contain all the information about the running processes at that particular time, or that particular boot time. Yeah, from the last boot time exactly. And then we have C's, we have the temporary directory. So in this directory, it's a nice one because after 7 days, if you haven't used the file, it will like be deleted. And also, uh, when you like shut down your machine, every file that is in the temporary directory will be lost. Yeah, so there's also another directory called temporary in the /var/tmp. So in this directory, it's of inactivity. That basically means if you don't touch them, all that. So in the particular upper directory, there is a www. So in this directory, basically the sysadmins mostly use it to host websites. Yeah, yeah, it's not a must you host them here, but anyway, most people do that. So let's see. We were talking about the boot directory, and in boot directory, of course, we have the grub configuration and these files that help in booting up. Yeah. So basically, we have like two files. One is for the previous kernel version that you had, and then the newest kernel version that you have. So basically, if it's booting up and the newest kernel version fails, it will like revert to the old one. So from here you can see that I had the kernel. Let's see. So I'll just do uname tag all, and we can see I'm currently in 6.0.0. So I'm using this configuration file here. But before I updated this one, I had this guy here. So I had the kernel version 5.1.8, 5.18. Yeah, sure thing. So another thing, we can check the release, the distribution, which is Kali Linux, and it's 64-bit, and this is the kernel version. Sure thing. So back to checking the root directories. That is the top level of the tree directory structure of the file system. We can see that we have the opt. This is basically for tools. Most people use tools, place tools here. Yeah. And then there is the etc. Yeah, I wouldn't have failed to mention the etc file. This is for user configurations. So most users, most configuration files are here. Maybe you're talking of SSH, groups, users, their permissions. You basically configure them in that directory. For instance, you can find like etc sudo as there. So sudo as, I guess. Yeah, that is there. The password file. Yeah, that is there also. You can find the group file. So this one will hold all groups, the primary groups and the secondary groups, all that. From there we have the dev directory, and this one will hold the devices. So everything in Linux is a file. So if you have a microphone connected, it will have a special file for it in the /dev. So it's a device file. So let's just go there and see. Yeah, look at that. You have all the HTTP and all that. Yeah. So another thing about Kali Linux is that we have like, I think 6 virtual terminals. So if you hold your control, then Alt, and any of the F1, F2 to F6 buttons, don't do it now because it will disconnect you, but it will basically change your virtual console to another. Yeah. So let's check the next. So it's permissions. So on permissions, you basically, in Linux, we have to, the way they configure things is that everything is owned by someone. So let me start by the category of users. So let's see, trusty. So basically in my system, what? A normal user. I'm a normal user, trusty. This file kindly to better explain that. So let's see. So we are just going to grab for anything that is ending with SH. And let's see. Yeah, so we can see that we have like 2 users here. So this one is interesting. I didn't know I had a Postgres user. Yeah, that is with a bin bash login. Yeah, so he has an interactive login. So basically you can log in using SSH, and that is really tricky. For me, I'm using the Z shell. So those are just types of shells. Like maybe you have born again shell and this one, and then the fish shell, I guess. Yeah. So we have like 3 types of users in Kali Linux. So we have the normal user like Trusty, and then the Postgres one. And they have interactive login shells, which is really bad. And then you have the super user. So this guy is like, in quotes, the god in Kali Linux. So if you are root, you have access to all, you have all privileges. You can do anything, unless now we talk of something like SC configurations. Yeah. So the other user is called system users. So those are the users who are like assigned to processes. Let me see. Login. Yeah, so no login. So these are users who are like assigned to processes. Let me see one that I can identify. Yeah, the system MD network. He has UID 11. So he's a user, he's a system user that is assigned to a process that doesn't require an interactive login. Yeah. Uh, let's see. So let's talk about the structure of this file, the passwd. So it has like 7 columns. The first column is the user, the name of that user. This X here, back then they used to store the password hash here, but because of insecurities where people used to carry brute force word list attacks on those password hashes, they decided to take the hashes to another file that I'll be showing you in the next demo. And then the one here, let's see, did I forget about that? I don't know. I guess I can't remember that. But the daemon here, that is just a comment about that user, that specific user. And then we have his home directory here, and we have the login shell that he uses, maybe interactive or non-interactive. The no login one is basically a program that just says you're not supposed to log in. Yeah, this account is currently not available. So yeah. So we were talking about the next file that I was supposed to show. So that is etc shadow. And we can't do that because we are not sudo. So yeah, so from here you can see that we have, I guess we also have seven fields here. And the first one is of course root. And then, so for the root account in my machine, I don't have a password for him. That's why it's blank. And then from here, I guess one of these fields will dictate from when the Kali Linux was made, I guess the date to now. And then this will be, I think will expire, and then this will be the warning time. I can't remember that offhand. And then here you will see the user trustee and then his password. And the expiry date. When it's all 9, it means there's no expiry date. And then the warning time. Yeah. So for the password, we can talk about it, I guess. So for the password, we have here, this is the hashing algorithm, the first one. And then this, so these parts are separated with $signs. And then the next one will be for the salt. And then this one will now be the hash. Yeah. So we were talking about permissions. So those who are user permissions, now we have group permissions. The group permission are basically in the etc group file, and you can see all groups are here. So we have like two types of groups in Linux, that is secondary groups and primary group. So when you basically make a user, maybe you can say user add, which is this session again, introduction to Kali Linux. So maybe you can say Kali Linux, user add Kali Linux. So let's do sudo. What Kali Linux will do, so we can like go to Kali Linux using su program and wait. So we are supposed to enter the password for Kali Linux, but it doesn't have any password. So anyway, let's go to root. And when you are root, you can like shift to any user at any time without a password. So I'm user Kali Linux, and then when I just make a user Kali Linux, we are given a specific UID. And at that moment, we are given a specific group that is primary group to us that has the same name as us. So we are given Kali Linux group that is basically the primary group for user Kali Linux. From there, if we exit and do the ID thing again, we can see that we have multiple groups here. Now the other groups are for the secondary category of a group. So what secondary groups mean is that it helps users. Maybe you want certain users to work on a certain project, and now in order to work on that project, you make the files be owned by a certain group. Maybe you have a project maybe on Kali Linux. Now you'll make a specific group called Kali Linux, and on top of their primary group, add them a secondary group called Kali Linux. So for example, on user root, we have secondary groups, a number of secondary groups. That is Wireshark, this one, and then this one, and ADM. Yeah. Yeah, so on services, I hope I'm not taking a lot of time. Yeah. So on services, we will talk about units here. So when Kali Linux starts, of course, it starts with the first process called systemmd. So let's do this. And it starts with this process here. This process now clones itself and then comes to be these other processes. So when we talk of services, maybe we have a service like SSH running. So we can do systemctl and then something like this. And you can see that this is a service. So it's a unit. They're called what? Service units, exactly. So in Linux, we have these services that are run by default. They basically look like, I don't know if you have heard of something called daemons. So what daemons are, they are services what daemons are their services that run in the background and do not need the user interference. Exactly. So this is just a service called SSH and it's active at this time. And now this is just basic information about the service. We have processes in Linux. So I'll go after the startup, I'll be talking about how the basic commands in Linux and how you navigate around. Yeah, so that we won't be so lost. Okay, I know some of us are beginners, so please bear with us. Yeah, so let's get rid of that one. Let's talk about processes. So you can start a process, maybe sleep 1000, I guess. So this is a process you have started, and now you can monitor it from here and say ps-af. So this is a command that will check the processes that are running at this particular time, and you can grep for sleep. So grep is a tool that is used to I think the best explanation is search for something. We have a lot of processes, but we are just interested with the sleep one. So we want sleep in all those pool of processes. So just give us sleep and then we are done. So that is what I've done here. From here, this is the process ID, yeah, and all that. And the user who is running it is trusty. Yeah. So for the startup, we talked about the systemmd where we did PS3. And we said that this process is the first one that is launched when Kali is being booted up. So let's talk about basic commands. ls, okay, I'll have two terminals open. So the PowerShell one, I guess, if most people are used to Windows, so I'll be doing Windows and then comparing it to Linux because I know most of us are used to Windows. Yeah. So in Windows, you'll do something like dir to list all files in that current folder. But in Linux, you'll do ls. So this will list all current files in this directory. I hope you noticed that difference. In Linux, we're talking about directories. In Windows, you're talking about folders, but it's the same thing. Yeah, so we have listed all files here. Actually, let's go to /tm temporary directory and make our own directory. So and now I'll cheat a little bit and make a few directories and make a few files. So this will be let's say .txt files. So this is completely out of scope. So this will be test. Yeah, so I've just made a couple of directories. So that was test. Wow. Wait. I guess I should get rid of this guy here, because I was planning on making files and not directories. Yeah, something like that. Exactly. So when we come back here, we can navigate to that directory. Exactly. Now we can launch PowerShell there, and we can use our terminal here. So I'll also go to the default bash terminal, because most people are used to that. So when I do list here, so the ls is just list in short. It will like give us the listing of the current files in our directory. In PowerShell or Windows, basically in Windows we have two types of terminals, or a way you can interact via the terminal, that is PowerShell, and then there's the text-based command line. In PowerShell you deal with objects, in command line it's just text-based, but anyway. So in Windows you can do dir, that is for the CMD, and you can see that we are given back all the files that you have created here. So we can do here, that means that list all files and then use the long listing. So this will list the user permissions, the date the file was created, and the file name. It's so the output is similar to the Windows output. Yeah. Another thing is that the way you change directories or move from one directory to another is using CD. So this is similar in PowerShell and Windows, in Windows and Linux. So you can CD a step upwards, and then you can go back to the folder we were in. PowerShell also you can do that, and you can do that also. So again, in PowerShell they use this arrow. I guess this is the backward slash here. That's what they use. So another thing you can do in Linux is check your who am I. So I'm trusty, and then check the ID. So this will give the information about the user. In Windows, the equivalent of that is who am I also, but for privileges, you will just do something like all, I guess. Let's see. Not sure why that is failing, but basically it's because this PowerShell is not the right one. Yeah. So let's get rid of that one. On to the next slide. So that's the final. So is there any question so far?
John, can you explain the significance of the commands that you used when it comes to cybersecurity and our day-to-day operations, especially as a cybersecurity expert? I think that's going to be very important for everybody who has joined the session to understand what you did, why you did it, how is it going to help you into the other sessions, and etc.
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to explain all that. So basically, from the start, we said that Kali Linux is the most preferred distribution for cybersecurity professionals and also enthusiasts. This is because it's specifically made to do penetration testing. The guys behind it came up with a pool of tools that were included in this operating system. So the operating system is called Kali Linux. Its distribution is called Kali Roaring. Yeah, so we are currently using the Roaring distribution. Uh, when it comes to day-to-day life, you as a penetration tester, you basically need an operating system that is flexible, that allows you to install tools, update, and also use the available tools in it. Yeah, and Kali Linux just gives you that. So it's made flexible, and it also has a pool of tools so you can pull from. It allows you to install tools easily, and use them. Exactly.
Okay, so
The other question was,
can you please just give us a demo, because we have a lot of time on us. So can you just give us a demo, for example, to see some of the tools that Kali Linux has, also to how to update your distro, how do you install some of the tools? You could show even one, for example. What else could you look at? You could look at how to, for example, delete files. I'm sure some of them will want to know that while they go out there, and many other more. So could you please touch on that, on some basic commands that we tend to use on a daily basis: change directory, make directory, lists, print working directory, who am I, etc., etc. Administrative commands, net start, such type of thing. I think it's going to be very beneficial for the candidates.
exactly. Now, I don't know if I remember all that from my bat, but anyway, uh, we first said about creating a file, right? So we can use Touch to create a file, maybe let's say a demo file .txt, right? So when we list, we have demo file.txt here. We can write information into this file. So we can use echo. Maybe this is my first paragraph or my first line. So yeah, and now this operator, it's called the redirection operator, and it basically redirecting the output from this command. So let's see the output first. So this will just echo this to the standard out. And another thing, actually, we have something called file descriptors. For any process to learn, it must have at least 3 file descriptors. That is standard input, standard output, and standard error. Um, when we do this, now this will be printed into the standard output of this process, which is the terminal at this time and moment. The standard input is my keyboard. So when I type the keyboard like that, it will be like printed there. So that is the standard input. The standard error, it's basically another file stream that, let's see. Let me do what? To demonstrate standard error, actually, let's see. So we will try to find something called with the name S. So this is a command. Okay, this will complicate things. Let's first deal with this one. So this will print the line to standard output, right? So if we do this and redirect it to the demo file like that, the information that was supposed to be printed to the standard output is redirected to this file, and it's written there. Now, to read the information in this file, you can use a couple of commands. One of them being cat, and now you can see the demo file. So that will read the uh, the content of this file and print it to the standard output. So the standard, we were talking about file descriptors, right? Let's see. Just to try to explain it better, I'll be writing it down, I guess. So, okay. So let's get rid of that one. So we talked about file descriptors. I bet the best way to do this is writing this down, because yeah. So we talked about standard output. So standard in, standard output, and then you have the standard error. And then the other file descriptors will be maybe file 1, file 2, file 3. Yeah. So for standard input, we basically denote it with a 0. For standard output, we denote it with a 1. For standard error, we denote it with a 2. Now coming back here, we can try to cut this file. It is of course redirected to standard output, that is 1. So we can say we want the standard output redirected to standard error. And if we do that, now we cannot do what? Now we cannot see the output because standard output was redirected to standard error. Let's see. Now we can like redirect standard error to standard output, and that fails. Weird. Let's now that spoiled what I was supposed to explain. Uh, yeah, because I've known it. So this is because there was no error in this first command. So that's why that failed. Uh, the way we can like describe the best command to see the standard output is that, wait, did that print it out there? Weird. Okay, so we can use find. Now how find works, it's a utility. It goes every file to file searching for something, and one option is giving it a name of the file you want to find, maybe file like that. And you can see that we have errors, like for instance we are told permission denied, so that is an error, right? So we can redirect that to a file. So we are saying from the standard output, that is the standard error, redirect all that to dev null. So this is this is a file that is like a black hole in Linux. So in PowerShell, of course, you will do something like out null. So in Linux, this is the version of out null. Now this is like a black hole. Anything that goes there will never be seen. So if you do that, we won't find those errors being printed out in the terminal. Like basically you say I've like click that. If we get rid of this one, those errors will be printed out like you can see there. So yeah, that's how those file descriptors work. We were supposed to talk about creating files. So we said we can use commands like touch. We can also create a file using echo. I'll just show this. I'll demo this. So we can first note them down. So touch echo, and then you'll give it the argument, the file name as the argument, right? For removing files, we can talk of something like remove, and then we have options to remove them. So we ought to have talked about creating directories, or what Windows people call folders. So let's see. So the way you do that is using this command. So we will of course demo this. So we'll start with making directory. So I'll make a directory called demo. Okay, make a directory called demo. Exactly. So make a directory called demo. And if we list the files in our current directory, we can see that we have demo there. Now we can navigate to this directory. So the way we navigate is navigating to directories. We can use cd. So this is in simple terms, change directory, right? So we can do something like change directory here. Okay, yeah, something like that. So yeah, so we can do cd and then demo. So we are in the demo directory right now. So if we list, there's nothing in the demo directory. Can we list everything? Tag A means all, and then L means the long listing thing. So this will include the username and all that. So the dot means the current directory, and two dots means, or basically I would say two periods. Two periods means the upper directory. Yeah. So we can move a directory from files from directories to other directories, or maybe move a directory from another directory to another one using the move thing. That is the move command. So let's see. So move files and directories, right? directory. Yeah, so here we'll use the mv command. So this just means move. So move something to somewhere else. Interesting. So we can move going back one directory upwards, the demo file that we had. We can move it to our current directory, which we have said it's denoted by one period, like that. And we can hit enter. So when we list our files in our current directory, we have that file there. We talked about creating, and we did that. We used echo, we used touch. So if we don't have a directory here, we can use echo, and then this is a new directory, or maybe a file. This is a new file. This is a new file. So you can echo that to new file, right? Something like that. And now we have new file. And if we read the contents of that new file, we can see that it's whatever we used echo to write into that file. So coming back here, so that was about echo. We can try removing files using the rm command. So we can remove new file like that, and it's not there anymore. We can remove that one, and it's not there anymore. So changing the directory to one directory upwards, listing the files, we see there is a demo directory. We can try removing it. And it says that we cannot remove it because it's a directory. So removing a directory, we can try to do something like this. So this will be removing directories. We can try something like remove dir. And that only works if that directory does not have any other file in it. So remove directory, and then we say demo, and it's removed. But that only works if there's no other file in that directory. So we can make a directory demo again. Okay. So basically my right hand side is slower than my left hand side. So we can seed into that directory, and we can make another file. So touch file one, right? Coming back here, we can say remove directory demo, and it fails to remove it because the directory is not empty. So the other command we can try to remove directories that have files is remove with the option false and the recursive, right? So we'll do something like that, and then the demo. So that has removed that one. I mean, this command has removed the entire directory with its subdirectories. So the next thing I was supposed to talk about was installing packages. So installing packages. And from here we can see that Kali Linux has like two main package installers. So we have the Debian one, and we have the apt one. So this is the main package manager for Linux. But now we have, since Linux is a Debian-based distribution, we basically can also install this one, the tools from Debian. So what that means is that we can use the Debian package manager, and we can also use the Linux one. So let's try installing something like nmap. So we can do something like sudo apt get install nmap. Like that, we are prompted for a password, and remember this password is my password. So we can use that one. Yeah, and we are told that nmap is already installed. So the way you do that with the Debian package manager is, I think, something like dpkg and then tac-i and then the nmap dep file. Yeah, I guess .dp files. So if you download the nmap.dp files, you can like configure it using this command. What else are we about to talk about? The networking aspect. networking aspect in Linux. That is Kali Linux. So we can check the open services in our machine, all the established connections to our machine using NetStart. So this is the old version. So this is the old version. Nowadays they use something called SS. So what this brought, uh, newer changes like the IPv6. So as you all know, we are now in the era of using the IPv6. What do we call them? Yeah, IPv6. So IPv6, IPv4 support, right? So this one was supporting IPv4 only. But I guess there are those options for supporting IPv6 too. Yeah, so we can do something like this. Net start, and then we say all TCP connections, and let's just grab a minute like this one. Let's grab this one. We try to explain it. Okay, so now this spoiled it because it's, yeah, I want it to be in one line so that I can explain it. So the connection type is TCP. That means it's connection oriented and not the UDP one, which is connectionless. So this one is more secure than the UDP one because in TCP, you basically confirm that the packets reach the endpoint, and it's basically a mode of communication, right? So when you talk about TCP and UDP, you are talking about, let's say we are talking with you like right now. I can confirm whether you are hearing me by saying, hey, can you hear me? And then Sakarim will say, yes, we can hear you, continue. Now that is the way TCP works. But in UDP, it will be more of, hey, I'm here and all that. We are talking about this, and I won't confirm your availability or whether I'm being heard or not. I won't confirm that. So stuff like Ethernet, I guess they use UDP. I'm not sure, but anyway. So for the zeros, I guess this is the received and the sent. I'm not sure about that, but anyway. Let's talk about this one. So it's learning as user trusty. Let's see
What?
the local address. So yeah, so trusty is the host name. So basically, if you do something like host name, you'll get trusty. So trusty will configure to my how do I call that? The loopback address. So the loopback address is 127.0.0.1. So this means my local machine. Yeah, basically this means the local machine. So in the local machine on this port, we are connected to this current session, which we are using Zoom, and it's basically using the HTTPS mode. So that is the secured HTTP protocol. And then it says that this connection is already established. Really nice. So let's take another one. I think this one, exactly the SSH one. So the SSH one is better, I guess. So let's try to format this also. That's better. So it's saying that it's listening for SSH on any port, and then it's listening for SSH from any IP address on any port. Yeah. Basically, I should have noted that it is listening on port 22. Exactly. So the SSH protocol here means that my current SSH port, it's port 22. So it's listening for that from any IP address in locally or any IP address not locally that is trying to connect to us. on any port, exactly. And its state is listening, so you can connect at it anytime. It is not yet established. Yeah, I don't know if I explained that correctly, but I think what I just explained was this one.
Oh, you're
But
on.
basically, this is the IPv4 version of it, exactly. Pardon, I didn't hear you.
You're on point. You're on point. Like your explanations are okay up to now.
Okay. So this is the IPv4 version of it. This is the IPv6 version of it. From here, you can see it's using TCP6. And then the loopback address for IPv6, I guess it's that one and that one. Yeah, sure thing. So we were to talk about what else? Uh,
Some few tools.
Let me, some few tools.
Not for you, just one,
Exactly.
because
So,
time is almost up. Okay, let's do this. Let's just end there for now.
uh-huh.
There are some questions, and I don't want to disappoint the candidates who asked their questions. So let's just go to the Q&A and just answer the candidates' burning questions that they had. So one of them is, what is wrong with PostgreSQL user having an interactive shell access?
Uh, that is a security hole because I wouldn't want a Postgres user to have an interactive shell. Take a look at it in this way. What is the main role of Postgres user? He's running a service called Postgres. So
Yeah.
that database, exactly. You
Yeah.
wouldn't want a database to have an interactive shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody said that they are confused with you, I think they are kind of left back in terms of the users, the explanations on users. So if you could explain that again, I guess that would be awesome. The different type of users,
Okay.
root, normal users, etc. What is the other pseudo users, etc. Yeah, around that domain.
Okay. So we said in Kali Linux, we have three types of users. So that is how system administrators are taught. So uh, we have the top level domain user, that is the super user. He can do anything. He literally can do anything. Then we have the normal users, that is the user me and you. The super user, sorry, I forgot that, he is the root user. Then the normal users are basically the one who are logging in as, because right now Kali Linux cannot allow you to log in as root. So you have to log in as a normal user and then elevate your privileges to root. Then we have the users who are given to daemons, because remember we said that for every process we have to manage its privileges, and how you do that, it's basically using user accounts. So for services that are running without your intervention, maybe SSH, it must have its own user account. So that is called a system user. And the pool where the IDs are assigned to those system users is from, I guess, 100 to 1,000. Then from 1,000 to the other end, we are basically given to the normal users. The UID for root is 0. Yeah. I hope I explained that well.
No, you're on
Might
point.
confuse.
No, the explanations are good. So yeah. The other question is, what's the difference between shell and CMD?
Okay, so uh, let's talk about Windows and Kali Linux first. Windows, it's a Microsoft-based operating system, and then Offensive Security, on the other hand, came up with Backtrack, which evolved to be the Kali Linux operating system, right? So in Kali Linux, you can operate in, I guess, 7 modes. Yeah, 7 modes. But in mode 3, you of course operate as a server. So what server means is that you'll just be presented with the login form. I mean the terminal only. In mode 7, you'll be presented with the GUI and then the shell, which is basically referred to as the terminal by most guys. So the difference between the shell and the CMD is that in Microsoft, so their operating system called Windows, if you want to interact with that operating system using text-based commands, you will use the command prompt called CMD. On the other hand, in Linux, if you want to do the same, you'll use the terminal. Yeah. And also another point to notice that in Windows, they decided to bring a more advanced CMD called PowerShell. So they have that specific language. It deals with objects basically. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is on permissions. How to change the different file permission in Kali Linux?
Oh, about that, I almost forgot. That is a whole new topic.
Yeah,
So
true.
let's see. Just allow me 5 minutes to explain this. So
No, sure thing.
permissions.
Sure thing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Permissions. In permissions in Kali Linux, so let's talk about Kali Linux permissions. So I'll be quick on this one because Karim is okay. So we have two types of file permissions. So Kali Linux file permissions. We have two types of permissions, that is symbolic permissions, and we have the octo permissions. So in symbolic, um, this is where you'll find something like, maybe if we do something like that, you'll find something like this. So taking note of that, we'll find read, write, execute, right? In octo, you'll find something like maybe 600. Yeah, now that is where the confusion comes in. Now, in this one, it's basically easy because you can dictate like in this file, if you are the other user, you can get, so basically in normal users, we have three types of users. So we have the root, the normal user, and then other user that is not you. So they are normal users, but they are not you. So maybe I'm Trusty, and then there's another user called Postgres. So that other user can read this file, right? And I can also read it and write it because I'm in the group of Trusty. So this group here. So this is the group. So I'm in group Trusty, and then the user can read and write that file. So that is the interesting part, because when it's written this way, we can basically read that, and that is really easy. But for octo, I don't know if I can remember, but zero meant what did it mean? It meant no permission, right? In octo, no permission. So in octo, basically the permissions run from 0 to 7, I guess. Yeah, and 0 means that one. 1 means, what did 1 mean? Maybe we do it practically and see. So we can do ch mode and then 001 on maybe test 10, like that, and then list all test and then 10. Okay, so 1 means execute. 1 means execute, and then 2 means was it write or read? Let's see. Again, we do that because my mind cannot do, remember that. So 2 means write, exactly. So 2 means write, like I thought, and then 4 means read. So if you want to assign this permission to others, you would basically also another thing to note, in these categories, like maybe 6, I'll just place them there. So we can say that this first 6 will be the file permission for the user. The 0 in the next category will be for the group, and then the 0 in the end category will be for others. So I can say this is the user, this is the group, right? And then the O is for others. Yeah. So my 5 minutes is almost done. Wow. So if we want to give read write execute permission to the user, we'll basically pre the first value. So we can give it 7. So we'll give 7 there. And if we redo this, we'll give read write execute to user trusting. So if you want to give, so this is the easiest way to give permissions. If basically you are a system administrator and you want to give multiple permissions to multiple files. Yeah, so let's configure write permission to the group, or maybe read write permission to the group, or let's say 4 actually. So 4 means read and then execute permissions to others. So if you do that, you will find that we have read in group permissions and execute in others category. Yeah, that's basically it. And also in these file permissions, Karim atapiga kelele kidogo. Wow. But anyway, we have special file permissions. File permissions. So we have special file permissions. This where you find the suite bit, the sticky bit, and which other one? Yeah, the sticky bit, and we also have the GUID. So this means that if you are another user and run a file, it will run as the user that it is owned by, something of sort. Yeah, I hope that makes sense actually. Because let's see. So when it comes to suite and it's octo, we basically use the fourth value. So we can say for 4,000. Now analyzing this, it basically means that you are giving the suite bit to what? Suite bit to a file. So we can try that by doing chon. So this is the last example I'm giving on this one. So on test 10, I guess, like that. So we need to be sudo to do that. And then list or test 10, like that. And wow, that didn't change anything. Really? Okay. Interesting. 4,000. That is interesting. Oh, okay. I used chon instead of chmod. So chon is basically means the guy who owns it, which is weird. So chmod and then list that, and we see we get the suite bit binary. So the reason that this S is in capital letters, it's because we didn't have executable permission to the user. So basically it turns all red like that. But yeah, that's basically it. The other question kindly.
I can proceed, eh? Was it? Okay, so your next question is somebody just asked, how can you install Visual Studio Code by using command in Kali Linux? I guess we'll skip that one. I don't know. Okay, let's just go to the next one. Somebody just said, let me see. How can I download files, Visual Studio Code? I think for some of the questions, I'll give, you can just type your, what is it called? Your social media credentials so that they can reach out and ask you the installation process for Visual Studio, etc. It's going to be much easier. But the next question was difference between change mode and character. Is it character? Chat double R. Let me just type that one for you. I think you got
CHA. Yeah, I got it.
So it's change mode and chat double R. Yeah, that one. It's on the chat. You can just.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I talked about the super user account being able to do anything, right? But now we have the EC, what do we call them? SE something, SE rules. So what those rules do is that they can restrict even the super user from doing something. You get that? So that was chon and okay. So chon or chmod basically changes the permissions for a certain file. ch on will change. Let me write that one. So ch mode. Okay, so ch mode. Wow. So ch mode will basically change the mode of that file, and then ch on, of course, will change the user who owns it. So this will change the user who owns the file. Who owns the file, right? For chatter, so I don't know what this means, but it means change attribute. So for change attribute, this will change the attributes of the file. The attributes of the file. So basically, for chatter, I think we have like 16 attributes, and one of them is for the immutable. You know what immutable means? It basically means, excuse me for that. It basically means even the root user. It basically means that that thing is permanent. So let's try that. So change attribute, and then we can say plus I. So that means that we are adding the immutable bit to this file test1.txt, right? And then the operation is not permitted, so we can use sudo like that. And now we can check the permissions of that file using list attribute, right? And we can see that I means it's immutable, and E it's for extend, something like that. So you might find challenges in Linux where you'll not be able to write to a file, but you can be able to append to it. So if you list its attribute, you'll find a capital A here, not capital, but a small a. So if the root user tries to remove this file, so test1.txt, it is told that operation is not permitted, and I'm running it as root because I'm using the sudo program, right? But if basically we get rid of that immutable bit like that, we can remove that file as root successfully. So that, I think that changes that, yeah.
Perfect. So I have last two questions here. I just
Uh-huh.
want you to make the explanation short as possible so that we can end the session. So one of the question is, if I add user, or a user rather, and assign the password to the user, then how can I give that user a room to navigate via graphical apart from using a terminal? So I think his question is, instead of using the terminal to change from one folder to another, etc., how can they do that using the graphical interface of Kali to navigate rather?
Okay, so for that, it's really easy. You just launch the graphical uh, interface of Kali and use it. So like this one, and now we can now navigate to that directory, to documents, to infosec, like that.
Perfect. Okay, the last question is, how can I navigate to more directories using only one command? For instance, if my present directory is on documents, but I want to navigate to another directory called Kali in directory downloads, how can I do that?
So in that situation, we basically need to talk about relative and absolute paths. A
Okay.
relative path is a path that begins where you are, right? So we can navigate to my root directory, or rather my home directory, using an absolute path like this one. So we are saying go back one directory up, and then in that directory, go up again, and from there you can navigate to home, right? And then my current user account is Trusty. So navigating to that, you are now in Trusty, right? So we can navigate back, and we can use now the relative path. I mean the absolute path. So the absolute path is from the root directory. For the root directory, basically, when I say root directory, I hope you guys get it as the, what do we call it? The slash. That first directory, that one.
Yeah.
So home and then trust, like that.
Oh, okay. I think that's
Yeah.
just self explanatory. There's nothing any fancy. in that perspective. So Trustee or John,
Uh-huh.
I don't know which name you prefer the most, but thank you very much. I guess the session up to this point is done. We went very well, and thank you very much for your time. And on behalf of the Tanzanian people, I must say thank you very much. And we really appreciate the session that you've taken us through. But before we go, okay, yeah, you already have the social media credentials. So guys, you can
Yeah.
screenshot Trustee's credentials and just follow him on Twitter, or you could email him more questions that you may have. Oracle, I know you had questions about Visual Studio and how to install Visual Studio on the terminal. So I guess it would be best if you just get in touch with John, and then you can communicate further and he can give you further instructions on that. So guys, thank you very much for attending the session. See you next week, where we will start with introduction to Kali Linux. No, sorry, not Kali Linux, sorry, introduction to ethical hacking. And your instructor will be Mr. Taha Farouk. So be prepared. And I'm going to share additional resources with you guys so that you can, practice while you're waiting for the next week's session. So yeah, just be prepared. So guys, thank you very much.